to DATA's annual Transportation Roundtable. This event is over a decade old, and we're just pleased that we're able to conduct it this year under these exceptional circumstances. We have a group of panelists today, distinguished representatives of all the major agencies that cover the transportation landscape in Northern Virginia. We're going to hear from them in this order, and I'll just briefly identify them. Jennifer Mitchell from the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation, Helen Cuervo from the Virginia Department of Transportation, Tom Biesiadny from the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, Penny Newquist from Loudoun County Department of Transportation, Christina Scholl from the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, Paolo Belita from Prince William County Government Department of Transportation, and last, Al Watson from the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, otherwise known as Metro. So with that, I'm going to toss it to Doug Pickford, DATA's president and CEO, who will tell us a little bit about what's been happening at DATA recently, and then we'll proceed to introduce the panelists one by one. But before I yield to Doug, let me explain to everybody that we will be taking questions, but only after all the speakers have made their presentations. This is a Zoom webinar. I'm sure you're all very adept at dealing with Zoom, but at the bottom of your screen on the toolbar, you'll see a Q&A icon. If you'll lodge your question at that location, we'll be sure to try to get to as many of them as we can at the end of the program. So Doug, the floor is yours, the virtual floor.
Thank you, Jeff. I guess I don't need to introduce all the speakers now since you already did so, but that's fine. I just wanted to say that on behalf of the board of DATA, I want to thank the participants this morning for taking the time to give us an update on your respective perspectives on where we are during these unusual times, and some of the activities that you've been engaged in recently, and maybe even a little insight into where we are going in the coming months. And I think that a lot of this is still a little bit unknown, but I do think that all of you will offer some pretty unique perspectives. I also want to just add that DATA is still open for business. We are doing a whole lot of work with our clients based on telework, but for all the participants here today, if you have any questions, we are open for business. Look us up, and we'd be happy to help you out. If we don't know the answer, we certainly would put you in touch with someone who does know the answer. So we have a fairly large panel, so let's get underway. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, and we'll do a big E-clap for everybody right now.
Great, thank you. So let me get my presentation pulled up and share the screen. Let's see. There we go. Let's see. Just trying to get the screen pulled up here. Sorry, thought I had it pulled up in presentation mode already. Let's see. Okay. Well, why don't we do this? I can, there we go, up here. All right, so thank you, first of all, for having me this morning. I'm very pleased to be here. I love doing this event. It's great to see everybody else from the transportation community up in Northern Virginia as well. So a little bit, I think you all are pretty familiar with DRPT, but again, our mission is just moving people and goods around the state. We have a relatively big footprint for being a small agency. Last year, we allocated $879 million in projects for transit, rail, and commuter projects. We also work on feasibility studies, planning, programming, and provide technical assistance to grantees across the state. So a little bit about that footprint for public transportation. Last year, our transit providers across the state provided 172 million passenger trips. 122 million trips were, vehicle miles travel were reduced through our commuter assistance programs. Our van pool programs similarly reduced VMT by about 144 million trips. We almost have hit 1 million trips on state-supported passenger rail with Amtrak, and we were on pace to do that in 2020. We had a 10% increase in ridership between 2019 and 2018, and looking forward to continuing that growth in the future. Our Transforming Rail Initiative in Virginia initiative is one that we have been very focused on for the past several years. In December, we announced that we had reached a $3.7 billion deal with CSX, where we are acquiring part of their right-of-way. So we'll be acquiring 350 miles of railroad property and 225 miles of track. Our long-term goal here is fully separating passenger and freight rail so that we can have a more reliable and predictable network with less interference. So we will also be building about 39 miles of new track and acquiring 170 miles of what's called the Buckingham Branch, and that's a line between Doswell, Virginia, and Clifton Forge, and we hope that in the future we can establish east-west commuter rail service. In addition to that, we'll be building the Long Bridge, as well as a 4th track in Arlington and Alexandria, a 3rd track from Franconia to Lorton, what we're calling a rail bypass. We'll be acquiring track on the east between Richmond to Franconia, and then moving all of our passenger trains to the west side of the tracks, which we will own between Franconia then into DC. The big goal of this, though, is doubling state-sponsored Amtrak service between Washington and Richmond. We'll also be increasing VRE service by about 75% on the Fredericksburg line. And we'll be providing as well evening and weekend VRE service. Our new Amtrak service is also going to include a new round trip to Newport News and a new round trip to Norfolk as well. So the Long Bridge, many of you are pretty familiar with this bridge when you see it over, as you're going over the 14th Street Bridge off to your right. The picture above is a picture of it in 1925. The existing bridge that's there today was actually built in 1905 and looks very much like it did today as it did back then as well. It's structurally still sound, but it's a 2-track bridge owned by CSX and really needs to be expanded to 4 tracks total. So the project itself is a new 2-track bridge that we'll be building just north of the existing bridge. And it will also include a bike and ped bridge that will cross into DC as well. It's a pretty complicated corridor. It's about 1.5 miles total. It actually includes 5 additional structures that go over the GW Parkway, I-395, 14th Street, the Washington Channel, and Ohio Drive. The total project is estimated to be $1.9 billion. Most importantly, though, we will actually end up owning the new bridge and track, and the new bridge will be for passenger trains only. In this past General Assembly session, they created a new Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. And as we were working through governance issues related to Long Bridge and the new Virginia Railway Initiative, we understood that we needed to create a new entity that could actually own, manage, and operate the new assets that the state will be owning. So the Passenger Rail Authority will be a separate entity modeled very much after the Port Authority in Virginia. They will be the ones to actually have agreements with Amtrak and VRE. They'll lead the design and construction of Long Bridge. They will own all the assets that we're acquiring from CSX as well as the bridge, and they'll be able to acquire more assets in the future. It will have a statewide board with 6 representatives from Northern Virginia, 2 from Hampton Roads, 2 from Richmond, and 2 from Western Virginia as well. We also operate a new service, or existing service, called the Virginia Breeze, which has been in the I-81 corridor. And this is a intercity bus service that we operate with a combination of fares and federal funds as well. The purpose of this is really to connect communities that don't have good intercity travel options today, such as connections to the rail system or good connections to the highway system. So this was a intercity bus service, 2 new routes called the Capital Connector, will actually go from Martinsville to Richmond and then nonstop from Richmond to DC. And then also the Piedmont Express, which will go from Danville to Washington, DC with a stop at Dulles. And that new service just launched last week on August 7th. So the Transportation Omnibus bill that was passed in this 2020 session did raise new revenues for all of our modes. It both raised gas tax, diesel tax, and also a new highway use fee, and as well as a regional fuel tax as well. Most importantly, though, the Omnibus bill restructured our Transportation Trust Fund, whereas before we had a lot of sources that were going to different modes and different pots. We now have everything in a single pot for a Transportation Trust Fund, which is then divided up among modes and with our priorities off the top of those as well. So very importantly, especially today with the impact of COVID on our revenues, having all of our revenue sources going into a single Transportation Trust Fund makes it much more stable and much more reliable. So as part of that Omnibus bill, it also created a new transit ridership incentive program. We're currently working on the guidelines for this program, which we hope to implement later this year. It is going to be for two main priorities, and that's going to be for providing more regional connections, funding routes of regional significant, being able to develop and implement new regional subsidy models if appropriate, establishing bus-only lanes, or being able to fund integrated fare collection programs as well. All of the goals of this are really to reduce congestion and also to have a program that can provide greater equity and accessibility for low income or to fund fare-free programs throughout Virginia. So a little bit about the impacts of COVID-19 on transit and rail. We have seen significant ridership decreases across the state, although those are starting to come back. Many systems in Northern Virginia, as well as elsewhere across the state, are reestablishing their service and increasing some of their major commuter routes as well. Most importantly, what we really saw though during this crisis is that transit is an essential service, and we needed to keep our transit service running to get essential workers where they need to go to access healthcare and to basically keep our economy running. We provided $11 million back in March in emergency statewide transit operating assistance. And that was really as a bridge for some of the transit systems to be able to keep maintaining operations while they were having major reductions in fare revenues, and also as a bridge to the federal CARES Act funding. We did receive $456 million here in Virginia for federal CARES Act funding, which we have been distributing to agencies across the state. Back in June, we allocated 1/4 of some of those funds to the rural systems, and we'll be continuing to allocate those throughout the year as well. All of our transit systems in Virginia have been taking measures to increase their safety, such as limiting our interactions with operators, going fare-free, allowing rear boarding, implementing heightened sanitation precautions as well. We have also distributed facial coverings from USDOT to our transit systems across the state. And many are also tailoring their operations to really focus, as I mentioned before, on those key essential services. So we've gotten a lot of questions about revenue impacts, and we do expect to see a new revenue forecast next week when the General Assembly convenes, and they will be looking at a new budget for FY21 and FY22. One of the things we saw, though, in just the last quarter of 2020 was we actually saw an increase in recordation taxes above and beyond what we had forecasted. We did see a decrease in the motor fuels tax of about 7.5% for that when you compared it for the year end of 2020 to the year end of 2019. A decrease in sales and use tax, and also motor vehicle rental tax. I will say we were a little surprised to see that the motor vehicle rental tax was not down by even more, but we do understand that there's actually been a lot of rentals of trucks because of all the new Amazon and other e-commerce related freight traffic. So we will, the General Assembly is going to be considering a new budget coming up next week. The most important thing for us is really going to be establishing flexibility. Right now, as I showed before, all of our funds go into our transportation trust fund and are then divided among mode. And so if we do have a decrease in funding, it actually would require all of our modes to take a haircut. And that would include the way that our funds are allocated between transit operating, transit capital, and also our support for WMATA. So we will be seeking additional flexibility from the General Assembly so that we can focus on our core priorities. That may mean deferring some essential capital projects so that we can maintain our statewide operating assistance, and also finding ways that we can maintain our commitments to WMATA, because that's such a major commitment for the Northern Virginia jurisdictions. Once we have a new revenue forecast and seeing what happens in the General Assembly, we will be putting together a new 6-year plan based on that, which we would expect to roll out in the fall for eventual approval by the CTB. And as I mentioned, there will be a new the special session coming up. We'll have some other budget amendments as well that will allow us to also continue with our Transforming Rail initiative and being able to, again, get some flexibility that we need to be able to maintain our key priorities for FY21 and FY22. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Helen now. Let's see.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll be pulling ours up in a second.
So Sarah, this is Jenny. As I go to share my screen, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Right, I don't see you. Oh, there you are. I was trying to make you the co-host and I couldn't find your name. I apologize. Sorry, folks. There we go. Should work now.
All right, here we go.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate Jenny helping out, or else we would have been here probably for 15 minutes with me fumbling to share my screen. So I'm Helen Cuervo. So next slide. I'm with the Virginia Department of Transportation, Northern Virginia. And we are going to go over some latest information in Northern Virginia. So some of the information we'll touch on a high level is VDOT and how we're handling some of the COVID issues, construction progress, the projects in development, smart scale, some transportation demand management, and bicycle and pedestrian new laws. Next. So we really appreciate everybody who is social distancing and wearing masks. Our crews have been continuously out there from day one of this pandemic. They are essential workers, so they're keeping the roads clear, making sure trees are removed that fall down, that ditches are clean, that everything that we need to be doing to help keep our community safe, that they're doing that. And I ask that you try to keep them safe by making sure you stay 6 foot away and wear a mask when you're talking with them. So very much appreciate everybody working with us so that we can continue to provide the support that we need to. Next. So for the Virginia Department of Transportation, we are doing, I think, very well as far as setting up programs and patterns to do during this COVID. We are social distancing, whether we're in the office or in the field. We have everyone who can telework is teleworking, and that was quite an event to do in a week's time, to send almost everybody home that could telework with their computers. If they didn't have laptops, they took their big computers home. Everything we could do to get everybody out of the office. And technology has really made that possible, so that's fantastic. But we are getting better at virtual meetings and working with our citizens via the technology that we have today. Our offices are closed, so there are no walk-ins. Visitors have to make appointments. It has to be essential for the work that is to be done to have that meeting. We prefer to do everything online. And so our permits office is working very closely with public, and it does have occasional meetings where something can't be done over online. We are cleaning our facilities and doing everything we can for those who are in the office, such as the headquarters and the signal folks and folks watching over the highways, making sure that they're in a clean environment. Next. Next. Jenny, next.
I'm trying to press it.
So there has been a significant decline in traffic. Starting mid-March, traffic dropped from 40 to 60%. Obviously, schools were out, businesses were closed, teleworking was adopted. And what we have done is really taken full advantage of this reduction of cars by letting our contractors who are out there work for much longer hours. This will help enable us to advance the projects and get them done faster. And so we're very happy that we are taking advantage of this terrible time to get work done quicker, so that when we all do go back to work in the new normal, whatever that is, we will have maybe less projects that are blocking our way. Next. We are watching traffic carefully. Our general purpose lanes on the interstates are back up to 80 to 90% of the daily volume. There are some primaries that are up to 85%. There are some that roads that are very closely related to the federal government, who is their wholesale still teleworking, that may only be at 50%. And so we are continue to work on anything that we can in these areas and trying to adjust their hours, the contractors' hours, based on this to get things done quicker. Next. This is just a chart of the different roads and where we were early in the year and where we are now. As you can see, a lot of them are peaking up. Inside 66 is not moving up as quickly as the other roads, because it is one of those roads that are heavily used by federal government employees. Next. Our construction projects are doing very well. Last fiscal year that ended June 30th, we completed over 90% on time, 90% on budget, with 95% quality. And actually 72% of them finished ahead of schedule. Next. We have completed in March the Jones Branch connector over the Beltway. This gives much better access to 123 and the 495 express lanes, and we are very excited about the multimodal nature of that project. Next. We have the Route 7 corridor improvements underway from Reston Avenue to Jarrett Valley Drive. We're widening that from 4 to 6 lanes with shared use paths. We recently opened the triple left from westbound Route 7 to Barron Cameron. That was opened last year. And this project will be complete in the summer of 2024 at a cost of $313 million. Next. This is a relatively new project that's underway, Route 7 and Battlefield Park interchange. We removed a signal at Cardinal Park Drive and have established a 10-month detour, and really appreciate everybody's patience out there with this. It is a struggle to sometimes build these in active and live traffic, and when we have an opportunity to sort of shift things around, it can make the project go much more quickly. Completion is estimated in the summer of 2021. Next. And I'm sure everybody is familiar with 66 outside the Beltway. There are over 1,400 workers out in this arena at this time. So it is a massive, massive project, not only for folks driving by, but for our economy, keeping that 1,400 folks employed and working safely on this 22-mile corridor is good all around, good for the economy, good for the workers, good for getting this project done as quickly as possible. The express lanes should be open by the end of 2022. So we're excited about that. We're looking forward to it. We do have some transit service and multimodal programs that we're doing, but we're, because of the COVID and the pandemic, we are not pushing those at this time due to the nature of teleworking and those sorts of things, no school, and the less requirement at this time. But there's no doubt in this region that we will be back to normal at some point with heavily traveled roads, and be looking forward to those being an option for our citizens. Next. And as every year, we have started our paving schedule. We're going to resurface over 900 lane miles this construction season. So there's the virginiadot.org Nova Paving website where you can go to see which roads are on the system to be paved this year. You can see that we're doing very well with the condition of the interstates and primaries. Secondaries has always been a struggle, trying to catch up with the secondaries and the high volume of traffic using all of our secondaries. Many of our secondary roads like Braddock Road or West Ox carry more than interstates in other parts of the state. So we are an urban area and it is a real struggle, but we'll continue to do our best to keep the roads passable and safe and hopefully get the paving to the point where everything is in really great condition across the board. Next. So we are struggling and are having to recalibrate how we do business. We do not have the ability to do the public hearings in the way that we used to, or public information meetings. So we are definitely doing more virtual meetings, and we're seeing how that can be used through the normal federal process to allow us to do public hearings and that sort of thing that normally require in person. And so that might be a bunch of different things like virtual meetings, one-on-ones, posting plans in various places, obviously online ability to look and comment. But we are looking to set up our way forward to have those official meetings and do them in a way that reaches out to as many people as possible, just like today. Next. Smart Scale Round 4, we had 44 pre-applications, and our localities are applying for money for fiscal year 26 and 27. Full applications right now are due August 17th, and we have, as you can see, a wide variety of road and multimodal improvements. And so we hope to have the scoring complete by the end of this year, and then the CTB will make decisions next year. Next. Some projects, significant projects we're working on. We have an RFP out for the design of Braddock Road, a multimodal improvement project. It went out August 1st. We also have the right-of-way phases for several large projects getting ready to go out. Some of those may be out for consultant acquisition for Richmond Highway corridor improvements, Fairfax County Parkway widening, and the Route 29 widening Union Mill to Buckley's Gate. Next. We also have some advertisements planned in that we are doing. We are continuing to advertise projects. I know the pandemic has folks concerned about work and things moving forward, but we are continuing to advertise for designers, for construction, and we have not stopped or pulled back any of these. And so Featherbed Lane, a bridge rehab, will be advertised in September of this year. The I-95 southbound auxiliary lane from 123 to Prince William Parkway, which is a huge choke point for us, will be advertised at the end of the year. And a design build project for I-395 Boundary Channel Interchange that we're working on in concert with Arlington County, and RFQ will go out this fall. Next. Wrapping up some projects on the 28 tax district. We finished up some work between Dulles Toll Road and Sterling Boulevard this last year, and are going to complete some work on between Route 50 and McLaren by the end of this year. Next. And this is an effort that is a joint effort between VDOT, Fairfax County, Loudoun County, MWA, and the TRIP folks. It's a partnership for us to take a look at this area on 28, the airport, Dulles Toll Road, the Dulles Greenway. There is some significant congestion there. It is a highly utilized corridor. It has a lot of major roads coming into that area. And so we worked with our partners to come up with some analysis to see traffic-wise what could be done in that area, where the problems were. And so we've had outreach, we've had surveys out to the citizens. That closed August 3rd. And I think we have some preferred alternatives ready to start looking at how we would go about implementing those. And so we're looking at short-term and long-term ways to help improve that whole mechanism of traffic and different kinds of traffic modes in that area. Next. We're working on, in our transportation demand management area, we are working on some things to give citizens good information. One is the park and ride lots assessments, making sure we can put that on a GIS map so people know where they are. There's work being done on the regional bikeway network in the whole region, so we're excited about that, working with a variety of folks to update that. And we continue to do employer outreach to encourage people on multimodal options for transportation, such as telework, which we hope will continue a great deal. Next. There was a, between Commuter Connections and COG, we've done this telework survey and just encouraging information on the pandemic actually spurring a great deal of telework that may help us reduce traffic in the future. Obviously, we're a growing region and we will continue to grow and traffic will continue to grow along with it. So the most important thing for us is try to reduce as much traffic on the roads as possible. And so teleworking is fantastic. So many workplaces are saying that that they're anticipating post-pandemic telework will be greater than pre-pandemic. And 20% have already said they would plan to continue teleworking after the pandemic at the same level they are today. The telework option has been a really positive experience for most folks using it. And so we really encourage everybody to look at it and try to keep that going. We have massively been teleworking, and we are finding that folks are very efficient and effective working from home. There is a lot of lost time driving to meetings and driving to different locations. And so with everybody at home, there's no commute to meetings, there's no commute to work, there's more time to actually get the work done. So that has been really fantastic for us. Next. So the commuter survey, this was done as an effort between VDOT and DRPT to gauge the impacts of the COVID right now, and what that means to our long-term commuting groups. So we'll be collecting and looking at that information to see what we should do and how we move towards the future. Next. Some of the first results are showing really a huge uptick in bike, e-scooter use, and also personal car use. So many of the folks that have responded so far are saying that they're much more amenable to using some of those different kinds of ways to get to work than before. Prior to the pandemic, 15% of the respondents work from home at least part of the time. And as of this past week, as of the past week that they had collected the data, 65% had worked from home at least one day that week. So getting the survey results will help us visualize the future for transportation. It will help us know more about what people are doing, what their thoughts are, and how we need to plan and amend what we are doing to meet that need. Next. Just wanted to highlight there are some new pedestrian laws. So the drivers must stop for pedestrians in the crosswalks until they have fully cleared the lane they are in. And so this includes unmarked crosswalks as well as marked crosswalks. So just a heads up that you need to stop and make sure that you protect that person. Next. And in this case, it also mandates that if someone has stopped in front of you, that you cannot pull around that person and pass them. Next. And then there are additional penalties for injuring those who are vulnerable, such as biker and pedestrians on the roads. And so that is another important initiative, emphasizing that we do need more people to walk and bike to work, to take transit and do these other things, but we need to make sure that they're safe and they feel comfortable doing that. And with that, I think that is the end of my portion, and I will pass it to Tom Biesiadny. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I'm going to share my screen as well. Hopefully, Hopefully you all can see the presentation now. We have a number of topics to cover here. I'm going to try and avoid any kind of overlaps with others, but I do want to give you a little update on the work that we've been doing here in Fairfax County related to the Silver Line. Also talk to you about some connections that we're working on across the Dulles Toll Road, some other projects in the Reston area, a little bit on Route 28, and a study that we're working on in the Fairfax County Parkway. So first of all, on the Silver Line, obviously the Airports Authority has the responsibility for constructing the Silver Line, but the two jurisdictions, Fairfax and Loudon, had responsibility for building the parking garages associated with the project. And so the first garage, the Herndon garage, is actually an additional parking garage at what is now the Herndon. Yes?
I don't see your screen. I don't know if others see it or not, but I do not.
All right.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's see what happens.
Sarah, have you made Tom a co-host?
He is. Yes, he is a co-host. But I don't have his slides. They were a little large for sending.
Yeah, they're pretty large. I'm hitting the share screen button.
Tom, you have to highlight your file on your desktop, the image you want to project, and then start sharing.
Let me see if I can do this. Oh, let's see what that does. Does that bring anything up?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, do you see a title slide now?
Yes,
Outstanding, perfecto.
Okay, technology. All right, so continuing on, thank you for letting me know, Penny, that they weren't showing. They look just fine on my screen. So anyway, the Herndon Garage is a brand new facility at what has been the Herndon Monroe Park and Ride lot. It was about $45 million. It is 100% complete right now and has been open to the public since April of 2019. It has about 6,000 parking spaces and 130 bicycle spaces. We have also completely renovated the bus loop in that area, repaved it, and rehabilitated the canopy. And that work was just completed. So you see a few pictures there of the garage, the exterior, and then some interior, and you can also see the new bus loop area there. So the Innovation Station Garage is out there by the Center for Innovative Technology. This garage is about $52 million project. It's 99% complete, and we reached substantial completion last month, actually in the end of June. It has 2,100 parking spaces, a few more bicycle parking spaces, so 170 of those. A kiss and ride area. This facility is also unique because it has a snow melter on the roof. Typically, when it snows more than about 4 inches, the county hasn't plowed the upper level of our parking garages. And so we're experimenting with this to see if we can plow and then use a snow melter so that the upper level of the garage can remain open. So there you see some additional pictures of the garage. So in preparation for the Silver Line service, we're also looking at redeveloping our bus service in the general area. So this slide here kind of shows the existing service, the 32 routes that the Fairfax Connector operates in the Reston Herndon area. And we do that with about 70 buses. So we're in the process of reimagining that service. And so we've undertaken an effort over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, to understand what changes we can make to the service when the Silver Line opens. So we'll have 3 new stations in Fairfax, and that allows us to reconfigure the bus service. So we have been looking at a lot of public input. We've been evaluating our existing service to see what's working, what's not working, also looking at future needs, future connections. And then we've made some proposals out to the public. We've got feedback on those proposals. And so we're at the point where we have a preliminary recommendation. And so we've been out to get feedback on that. And so this is the just a summary of that recommendation. And of course, the map is too small for you to read, but we did include a link there at the bottom that you can pull the map up, and it's interactive, so you'll be able to move around in the map. But some of the highlights, we're adding new connections from the Reston Herndon area down to Chantilly and Centerville. It's been a missing link that people have asked for a considerable amount of time. We are adding a link to the Northern Virginia Community College out in Loudon, as well as new service between Herndon and Sterling. We are reducing average frequencies from 30 minutes to 20 minutes and improving the span of service. So service will last longer than it currently does, creating new connections, shortening travel times, and then also maintaining coverage on most bus stops that have coverage right now. We've put a huge emphasis on making sure that all of our middle school and high school areas in the area have service, and we're doing this as a budget neutral exercise. So the results so far are that we've been able to reduce travel times by about 14%. And these travel times are not just in the Reston Herndon area, but they're also trips that go outside of the area to Tyson's or to downtown DC, for example. We've been able to increase our coverage in terms of the population, the minority population, households, and low-income households. And then we've also been able to increase the both population and jobs that are served with either service that's 20 minutes or less or service that's 30 minutes or less. And so you see that there is actually an increase in areas, or I'm sorry, a decrease in areas that only have service every half hour or every hour. So the plan has been out for public comment. We're just getting that feedback now. We will summarize that and then make a recommendation back to the Board of Supervisors this fall. In addition to all the work that we've been doing on the rail side and on the transit side, we've also been making a number of bicycle and pedestrian connections to the stations. This is in the Reston area. We started out with 40 projects, 28 are complete, and you can see that we have a number of other projects that are in various stages of development. In the Herndon area, we started out with 14 projects, 3 of which are complete so far. Others are under construction or well in the development process. One of the ones that I want to particularly highlight is the WMATaflux bridge over Wheelie Avenue in Reston. This project will separate the WMATaflux from Wheelie Avenue. If you've ever ridden that on your bicycle, you know that's a very interesting, I guess is the best word I can put it, interesting crossing. This will enhance safety considerably and also reduce impacts on the traffic. We did receive our authorization from VDOT to enter right-of-way in June, and we gave authorization to Dominion to begin relocating their overhead poles in July. So construction is estimated to begin in summer of 2022 and finish in summer of 2023. I mentioned we have a number of connections across the toll road that we're working on, going from kind of west to east. And the first one I wanted to talk about was Davis Drive Bridge. This is a connection from Fairfax County in the south to Loudoun County in the north. Wraps around the current Center for Innovative Technology. NVTA has provided $20 million, and the counties so far have provided $1 million for this project. And VDOT is going to be working on that. They're undertaking the preliminary engineering and design right now. The feasibility study that VDOT is doing will be finished next summer. So there's a graphic there that shows you one of the alternatives that we're looking In addition, the Soapstone connector is a connector across the toll road between Wheelie Avenue and Reston Parkway. This will be a 4-lane multimodal facility. It is one that will connect Sunrise Valley Drive and Sunset Hills Road. And we're in the environmental process for this project. We have $155 million already identified for it. And we're expecting the environmental process will finish early next year, and then the project will be turned over to VDOT for design. A third crossing that we're working on is Town Center Parkway. This is just south of Reston Town Center. It's an extension of Town Center Parkway underneath the toll road to connect with Sunrise Valley Drive on the south side. As part of the rail project, the county actually paid for the airport's authority to put what we call underpinnings under the track so that we will be able to construct this without disrupting rail travel in the future. And VDOT has started a feasibility study on this one as well. So just a couple other projects in Reston, or a couple other activities. We did complete a network analysis. The board has adopted a funding plan. We completed a study of a realignment of Sunset Hills Road. As Helen mentioned, they are constructing Route 7 widening from Reston to Tysons. The board has funded 2 intersection projects, one at Sunrise Valley Drive and the Parkway, and another at Barron Cameron and the Reston Parkway. And bike share is going to be expanded in the Reston area starting later this year. Helen mentioned a couple of projects on Route 28. I won't go into a lot of detail here, but with the help of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, VDOT, Fairfax, and Loudon have been able to do a number of improvements on Route 28. 2 portions have already been completed in Fairfax, from Dulles Toll Road to Route 50 southbound, and from McLaren Road northbound to the Dulles Toll Road. And then VDOT has also finished from Route 50 to McLaren Road. Fairfax County is actually working on widening Route 28 from the Prince William County line up to Route 29. We did issue notice proceed on that earlier this year, and that is scheduled for completion in 2023. And so we really appreciate the contributions from the Transportation Authority in moving these projects forward on Route 28. Next slide. And lastly, I wanted to talk about a study on the Fairfax County Parkway that we are in the process of right now. So the final segment of the Fairfax County Parkway was completed in 2010, and the board has asked us to reassess the recommendations on the comprehensive plan for future widenings and interchanges. There's also recommendations for HOV on the comprehensive plan. And so we're in the process of undertaking a study right now that looks at the entire 35-mile corridor, as well as the Franconia Springfield Parkway corridor. And we have used 2 rounds of public comment to develop preliminary recommendations for 5 different segments of the Parkway. And there's not enough time for me to go through each of these right now, but I do include the link here. There is a presentation online, as well as a survey that we're encouraging people to take through August 31st. So with that, I will wrap up my presentation, and I will turn it over to Penny Newquist from Loudoun County. And do I need to do anything to stop share? Okay, there we go.
Okay, so let me pull up my presentation and see if we can get it going here. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
I'll let you know when we can see it, Penny. This is Sarah.
Okay. And if I can't get it, Sarah, you may have to pull it up on yours. Let's see. Oh boy. Share screen, is that what I need to do first?
Yep, you can go ahead and hit share screen on the bottom.
Okay. There, is it there now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, good. I'm going to focus on Loudoun County with regard to our transit programming. There's two significant things that are happening in Loudoun County, and we're not alone. This is happening in Fairfax County as well, and that's the fact that we have been significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of ridership, and of course, as a consequence, the financial impacts. And then, of course, the Silver Line Phase 2 revenue service opening, which is estimated in September, or excuse me, spring of 2021. I don't think Tom mentioned a date. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned a date either. We'll let WMATA staff talk to that one, or NWA staff talk to that one. Before I get into the details of what we've experienced in Loudoun County, I wanted to mention the types of transit services we provide. This includes commuter services or long haul services, which are coaches that travel from park and ride lots in Loudoun County into Washington and Arlington County for workplace destinations. We have Metro Connection service, which connects commuters from park and ride lots in Loudoun County to Metro rail stations. Currently, we're going to Ballston because of the summer shutdown of the Orange and Silver Line, and at the appropriate time, we will go back to delivering those passengers to West Falls Church. And then hopefully, once the Silver Line opens, we will be reconfiguring our Metro Connection service to get those riders to possibly Wheelie, Reston, or within the Metro rail stations within Loudoun County. The third type of service we have is what we call the local fixed routes, which runs specifically within Loudon, and which people who live and work in Loudoun County use those routes primarily to get around within the county. And I'll just note that unlike other metropolitan area jurisdictions, Loudon is not participating in the Metro bus service provided by WMATA. So we're strictly signing up or becoming a contributing member of the Metro Rail system with WMATA.
Penny, I'm just going to interject here. I think if you hit slideshow, we'll see your whole slide. Right now, it works.
Okay.
But we're seeing a little bit of, yeah.
Let's see. I'm hitting slideshow.
I'm using Mac, if anyone.
And then click where it says from current slide to the left.
Thank you, Christina.
Is that doing it? There we go.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so in March is when all of this started to really hit us in terms of it being a significant event with regard to the pandemic. We reduced the service to, in fact, March 30th, we shut down the Metro commuter service, long haul service completely. We reduced Metro Connection service, and for the most part, we kept local fixed routes as is. I think we reduced one route in our entire program there. But you can see from this chart that we, like other jurisdictions and other transit agencies, had significant reductions. So we had to adjust, and while we reduced service, we also eliminated fare collections as a way to prevent or decrease the amount of interaction between commuters and the drivers of the buses, because most of our buses don't have a secondary entrance on the side. So that was our decision at that time. And again, you can see from these numbers, we've seen significant reductions. We did just recently reactivate the commuter service on July 13th, and we are monitoring ridership, but the ridership continues to be very low, about 3% of what we had pre-COVID. However, I have to say that July and August tend to be high vacation months, so we'll continue to monitor that as we move into the fall season. Usually after Labor Day, ridership goes up. So we'll see what happens then. Okay. So now that I've done this, I just slide, okay, here we go. One of the things I wanted to mention is that we've found that while ridership has decreased, obviously at the, as you go into the urban areas of the region, our local fixed routes have become more significant, and that's become more visible. Even when ridership dropped, it was still a required service. and it shows us the nature and the vital role that local fixed routes play within Loudoun County. We're just wrapping up a study on unmet transit needs focused on seniors and those with disabilities. But I think one of the lessons learned from the pandemic is that our local transit service is very important to our community. We hope that eventually the Metro Connection and long haul service pick up again, and I would not say that we're going to go back to pre-COVID levels. I think that's going to take several years to happen, but we do hope that that ridership will increase again. Some of the COVID-19 safety protocols that we put in place, which are no different than anyone else at this point, was to maintain social distancing, which becomes, as we know over time, this has become very, very important. We base our practices on what has been instructed by CDC, by the governor, by DRPT, in terms of what we should be doing to ensure the safety of our ridership. So with regard to maintaining social distancing, that may sound simple, but when you take a bus and create social distancing on it, you really lose capacity on that bus. For example, on the commuter coaches, which are usually 55 passenger buses, we can only carry 13 passengers with the social distancing requirement, which we absolutely want to adhere to. It just means that if we were to ever get to the point of full capacity again, meaning pre-COVID levels, we would not have the bus equipment to haul all of those people. We are certainly implementing the mandatory face coverings, and as far as I know, we haven't had any confrontations with ridership with regard to that requirement. We have face masks to hand out if somebody boarding does not have a face mask. Again, in terms of encouraging ridership, bringing them back, creating confidence that it's safe to ride transit, we are doing intensive cleaning on all of the buses at the end of the day, cleaning areas that are highly touched areas and that type of thing. And so that's very much a focus that we have right now. And then I think, again, like most regional transit agencies, we're looking to purchase and install driver protective systems so that when a passenger gets on, there's less chance of a spread of anything between the passenger and the driver. Many of these have been touched on. I think, Helen, you had mentioned a lot of these things. In fact, I want to get your survey from you when it's finished because it'll help us predict what we might be facing in the future here. Telework has been tested and we've found that it can work. It can work very effectively. There are downsides. One of the things I've read is that people tend to work longer hours, which is hard to imagine, but yes, that happens. So we know that the technology is there. It may not be perfected yet, but I think many people have found that they can be more efficient working from home. And so there may be some long-term impacts, likelihood of continued teleworking, which of course will reduce the demand on mass transit as well as potentially our roadway systems. Preliminary information I have from WMATA is that the public sector employers are heading back to work faster than the private sector employers. I've heard in some cases that private sector employers will not ask employees back until January of 2021. So that will also play a part in what we do with regard to the service levels that we'll provide, how many buses we need to run to get people to their place of employment. Another big factor in terms of what's going to happen for the future is schools. I think throughout most of the region, what I'm understanding is that most classrooms will be virtual. And that means that parents will, or somebody in the household will have to be home, I would hope, with the kids to ensure that school and learning is going on. So that's going to have an impact on the workplace and the use of mass transit as well. And of course, I don't know that any of us expected COVID-19 to go on as long as it has and as long as we think it may go on, but we are certainly in hopes of finding a new vaccine that will help relieve concerns and treat the virus itself so that it's safe to come out into the public arena again. And of course, I mentioned the safety protocols with regard to cleaning and hygiene. That's a key part, I think, in terms of regaining confidence among our ridership to once again use mass transit. Another factor is roadway utilization. I have so far where I live, which is in Bluemont in western Loudoun County, have not seen huge increases, although I have seen increases, and Helen gave us some specific data on certain roadway utilization. If the roadways once again get clogged, I would think that people would maybe once again consider the use of mass transit. And I think another factor is whatever actions that WMATA will take will affect our ability to increase the metro connection and long haul service. As agencies, federal agencies, private sector agencies open up, that will probably encourage many of the residents in Loudoun County to head back to the office. We just don't know at what level of frequency they'll be in the office versus teleworking. Okay, so let me jump to the Silver Line Phase 2. Again, the plan is for spring 2021. This opening is planned for the last quarter of fiscal 21. It's in the WMATA budget, and all contributing jurisdictions have money set aside for this program or this opening. I'm not going to go into details about the status of the Silver Line. There's some issues, as we all know, and those are being worked on to resolve any construction issues so we can get the Silver Line opened up. In the meantime, we're planning 7 new bus routes to encourage the use of the Metro Rail service. One of our board directives is to get people to the Metro Rail system. And so we're reconfiguring our bus route system to get more people to the Metro Rail system. Let's see. Oh. Sorry here. I don't have the pictures that Tom had on their Metro Rail stations, but they look, and the garages, they look a lot alike, I think, in reality. We have 3 stations coming to Loudoun County: the Dulles Metro Rail station at Dulles Airport, International Airport. We have the Loudon Gateway Metro Rail station and the Ashburn Metro Rail station. Both the Loudon Gateway and the Ashburn Metro Rail stations have garages. At the Loudon Gateway Metro Rail station, we have 1 parking garage with 1,965 parking spaces. At the Ashburn Metro Rail station, we have 2 parking garages, one owned by the county on the south side of Ashburn, and that's 1,550 spaces. And then on the north side, we have a privately owned and built garage with 1,435 spaces. And of course, that's a lot of parking spaces, and we're hoping that we can fill those up. One of the changes that we're making in order to help encourage the use of these garages, I'll go back to that slide, is that we are moving from the Dulles North Transit Center, and we are relocating it in the North Employee parking lot at the MWA, on the MWA properties. So we're trying to get people out of that lot, and I'll mention that to you, Helen, because we'll probably be talking to you about that lot that's there right now. But we want people to not park for free at that existing facility and then walk to the Metro Rail station. We want them to come to our garages and pay the fare to use the garage. Each of the garages have features. I would guess that this is true for Fairfax as well. We will use the WMATA Park system, which enables the user to use smart card or charge cards to access the facility. Parking spaces has the LED lights that tell you whether the spaces are occupied or unoccupied. There are electric car charging stations on each level. We have bicycle parking at the entrances. And we have the blue light phones for emergency and security features. And we're connected, all of this is connected to the sheriff's station to respond to anything that may occur. We have a major bike and pedestrian connectivity project underway. I don't know that it's segmented in the way that Fairfax is described, but we're working, its project is managed by VDOT. It's a $40 million multi-year project with CMAQ and RSTP funds. The idea is to increase the connectivity from the WNOD bike trail to and local communities to the Metro Rail stations. So it will take several years. I think we're talking 5 to 6, possibly 7 years to make all of the connectivity work. But it's creating alternatives to driving to get people to the Metro Rail stations. In summary, I would just say that right now there are many unknowns in the world of transit. I don't think that's a negative necessarily. I think it means that we need to rethink and review how much and how best to provide the types of services we provide. Clearly, what we've learned in Loudoun County is that our local service becomes more and more important into our community because many people don't leave Loudoun County, they live and work here. And then obviously, I think we are all looking forward to the arrival of the Silver Line Phase 2. So with that, I will turn it over to, I've lost my page here. Hold on.
Christina Scholl.
Thank you. Christina Scholl from MWA. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Penny.
Penny, would you stop share? Can you stop sharing your screen, please?
I can just kick Penny's screen out.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
All righty. Well, good morning, everybody. As everyone said, my name is Christina Saul. I am with the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. I bring greetings from many of my colleagues who you are all used to hearing from. As you can imagine, there's a lot of meetings going on these days, so we're dividing and conquering, talking to all of our great local stakeholders. I'm going to focus my remarks today on the impact of COVID-19, both on Dulles International, but also a lot of these things also apply to Reagan National Airport, kind of where we are and where we're hoping to go in the future and kind of the steps we're taking to rebuild passenger confidence. As you can imagine, this is an incredibly difficult time for everybody in the aviation industry. The impacts of COVID-19 came quickly. They hit businesses hard. Stay-at-home orders, travel bans, all have, unfortunately, a negative impact across the aviation industry. And we think that recovery is going to be not in weeks, but months and possibly years. But throughout this situation and, every emergency situation, obviously the health and safety of both our passengers and employees is our top priority. That is our focus in recovery, and that will continue to be our focus moving forward throughout the entire pandemic. Let's look at quickly how we got here. I personally have been working on COVID-19 since January 15th at 4:09 p.m. when I received an email from our Dulles Airport operations team to myself and our emergency manager saying, hey, there's this new coronavirus in China. This is worth watching. And things really ramped up very quickly from there. You saw health screenings done by our partners at the CDC, at various airports around the country, a travel ban for individuals flying to China, and then eventually individuals who had a history of traveling through Asia to be funneled to 11 different airports around the country, including Dulles. Throughout the month of February, we saw these continue to increase as cases moved from Asia across Europe. A number of people trying to get home from around the world, including tens of thousands of individuals coming back from Europe just prior to their borders being closed in mid-March. We saw our first cases here in the National Capital Region in early March, but at that point it was really just a trickle. And then things really moved quickly for the Airports Authority. Our crisis management team, which is still ongoing, and is made up of a group of about 30 individuals from every department across the Airports Authority, from both the corporate level and both the airports, the Dulles Toll Road and the Silver Line Metro Rail project, working together on a daily basis to make sure that we are addressing all of our passengers and employees' needs. Our emergency operations center has been activated since mid-March. We're meeting on a daily basis to talk about that. And then something that I never thought we'd see is teleworking. And as others have said, teleworking has actually worked really, really well for those of us who have jobs that enable us to be able to do that. And the best part of that is it has kept our employees, home and apart who can do that. It has kept our caseload within the Airports Authority very low, which we are grateful for. And most of all, it has let us all do our best work to support our colleagues whose jobs do require them to go to the airport every single day, those essential employees that are keeping the airports up and running and moving. We are so grateful to them and their hard work and dedication, and a large number of us teleworking have made their jobs be able to continue safely. As I mentioned, in March and early April, we saw hundreds of charter and repatriation flights coming from airlines around the world. We worked with CDC and DHS to set up a special health screening area that's separate from the international arrivals area for individuals coming back from countries identified by the State Department as needing health screenings. This process has actually moved now into the international arrivals area of Dulles. And you talk with these folks from CDC and DHS prior to going through CBP, passport and customs. This will continue as long as our federal government partners mandate that it does. Our relationship with them is fantastic, and we're working very closely with them to make sure that all the protocols that they've implemented that we are fulfilling for those who are traveling home to the National Capital Region, and then also connecting on to other flights through Dulles. So what does this mean from a business perspective? The current situation for our airports and everybody in the aviation industry is very challenging. We are still down around 75% on a daily basis for the number of aircraft that you see landing and taking off. I live 2 miles from DCA. Many of my neighbors comment about how quiet it is. And it is. I miss seeing airplanes in the sky. But even as we have some flights resuming and airline schedules resuming, we are still significantly down on passenger traffic. We follow a trend line of how many passengers are being screened by TSA on a daily basis. So this is just outbound passengers. And while the number is overall going up, we are still down between usually 80 and 90% most days compared to last year. We are not alone in this. Most major airports across the United States are facing similar numbers. And so what does that mean from a business perspective? It means that all of the services that passengers utilize, which is how the airport has its main source of revenue, is also down significantly. Things like parking, taxi rides, TNCs, those are Uber and Lyft rides, people renting cars, significantly concession sales, also down. And then the Dulles Toll Road, who, as others have said, ridership on our area roads are starting to go back up a little bit. We are still seeing those down significantly. So what does that mean? Revenue is down sharply for us and for all of our business partners. Companies are cutting budgets, delaying expenses to try to protect their bottom lines. We know that experts predict that the financial fallout of this will last through next year, possibly beyond that. We are very grateful to Congress for providing some financial relief for the CARES Act. That aid unfortunately only covers a fraction of our lost revenue and is meant to mostly be used for paycheck protection, as well as debt service payments, which will be coming up later this year as part of the Silver Line. But even with the aid, we know it's going to be a long, difficult recovery. But the best part of working in the travel industry is having great partners like everyone on this call and everyone across the aviation industry who is really working together to rebuild our business from, a historic drop off and lows to make it safer and healthier for individuals to fly. We know from our passengers that they really look for 3 key things when they're traveling right now to start to rebuild that passenger confidence. Mandated social distancing, the best that airports can, mandatory use of face coverings, which as we know has been the rule in the Commonwealth of Virginia since May, and an increase in cleaning and the availability of hand sanitizer. So if you have not been to Dulles or Reagan National since March, I wanted to share some photos of what that experience is like right now. As I said, both of our employees and passengers have been wearing masks since the mid to end of May. As others have said, our compliance has been very high. We have a number of options available for passengers who may not have a mask available, including masks through our airline partners, masks available for purchase through concessions, and then masks also available at each of our information booths. Early on in the pandemic, before it seems like every company started selling face masks, when we realized this was a need, even before it was mandated for our employees, we really saw, the true spirit of the airport's authority coming through. And this is some photos of our shops team at Dulles. These folks are normally hard at work keeping seats upholstered on the AeroTrain, on mobile lounges, and in gates. And instead they said, you know what, we can use our skills and make masks. So Mike Stewart, who I know many of you know, on the right, modeling one of our homemade masks for all of our employees across both airports. As I said, employees are wearing face coverings. Compliance has been very high. You'll see on the left one of our mobile lounge drivers also wearing a face shield. We've also taken additional steps in the mobile lounges and on the AeroTrain to separate staff and passengers. On mobile lounges, we are filling them to less than 40% of their designed capacity and then wiping them down between each trip, also giving employees more of a cordoned off secure area from passengers, just to give a little bit extra of that social distance. Healthy habits messaging from CDC has been the core of our messaging since the beginning, reminding passengers that there are simple steps that they can be taking to help avoid the spread of COVID-19, specifically definitely washing your hands, covering your cough with a tissue or your hands and then washing your hands afterward, or now hopefully covering it with a mask, and avoiding travel if you are sick. If you have been to the airport, you have likely seen the CDC signage on basically every available screen, surface, table. If there's a place, we have healthy habits messaging out. You've seen these protective shields in a lot of places in your community and throughout the transit world. We worked very closely with all of our airline partners to identify places that are key customer touch points where customers and employees are maybe having a longer transaction with each other, and a protective plexiglass shield would be helpful to them. So you will find these on all of our ticket counters. You can see on the right, United Airlines has them on all their ticket counters, both for their first class, business class check-in and for coach check-in, as well as all of our international airlines, many of whom share ticket counters, but those are now all the way down every ticket counter at Dulles, as well as at gate areas, customer service areas. You'll see them at concessions around cash registers. As I said, if there are customer touch points, you will see them around the airport. And we know that this gives confidence both to passengers and to employees. Social distancing signage, again, you see this everywhere that you go. There were over 3,000 social distancing stickers spread out throughout Dulles and Reagan National airports, just reminding passengers to give each other a little bit extra room, especially in areas where we have a lot of queuing. You'll see airlines doing various boarding procedures to help encourage social distancing, and also limiting capacity in things like, as I said, the mobile lounges, but also the AeroTrain and some other areas, just to allow folks to spread out a little bit. There's over 300 hand sanitizer stations in public areas across both airports. We know that this is very important to passengers and employees. Unfortunately, the supply chain of hand sanitizer, as I'm sure you know if you've been to a store recently, is still lagging behind a little bit. So our fantastic procurement team, along with the emergency operations team, have been working very closely to get hand sanitizer supplies, both distribution stations and the hand sanitizer itself, from many creative resources. we have been able to fill a backlog of where we had hoped to be able to put them, and we will continue deploying these as more supplies become available. And we all know that our healthcare partners are doing a fantastic job day in and day out tackling this pandemic. So Dulles Airport, if you have not driven by, it is really something fantastic to see, has been lit blue in honor of them since about mid-April, and that will continue as long as it needs to support everybody in our community. So with that, I will turn it over to Paolo Belita from the Prince William County Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Christina. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, thanks again, Christina. I actually live by the airport, and I did notice the reduction in air travel. Every morning at 5 o'clock, I'm usually awakened by some airplane flying in and under approach, so it's definitely cool. So good morning, everyone. My name is Paolo Belita. I'm a planning and program manager with Prince William County Department of Transportation. Today, I'll be going over some of the major projects in the county. I'll focus on the west end. This is similar to a presentation we give to our board members on a quarterly basis, but like I said, I'll focus on the west ends. I want to go over the goals of our department, which is really to meet the needs of our growing community. And we do this by ensuring that our residents can adequately reach their regional destinations as well as adequately be mobile within the county. And in order to meet these goals, we do this by working with our local, regional, state, and federal partners. As you can see here, so we work with our funding partners at the regional level, the state level, as well as we work closely with our jurisdictional partners. In terms of the different projects that we offer, we work on not only roadway projects, we look at major interchange projects, intersection projects, as well as bike ped projects. We have a lot of sidewalk and trail projects, as well as our first commuter garage here in the east end of the county. We also work on projects to improve access to our transit facilities. And before we go into the projects, I do want to talk about kind of COVID and how it's affected our department. We're a department of 50, and right now we're about 80% teleworking. And since March, COVID hasn't really affected our projects. We were moving forward with design, and a lot of our construction is ongoing. So I'll start with the first project, which is the Route 28 Corridor Improvements Project. As you can see in the map, last week actually at the board meeting, the board took action moving forward with alternative 4, which is the widening of existing 28 from 4 to 6 lanes. The project actually would tie into Fairfax County's design build project to widen their section of 28. So we've been coordinating closely with Fairfax County. Currently under further evaluation, we're going to meet with our funding and stakeholder partners on how to move forward with this project. Next project is a project we're excited about. It's intersection improvements at Prince William Parkway and University Boulevard. This is our first innovative project. We have a couple projects that were evaluated as part of the VDOT STAR study, which is a strategically targeted affordable roadway solutions program, which looks at alternative designs at intersections in lieu of your full grade separated interchanges. So this is a project that's fully funded by MBTA at $24 million, and kind of go over what it does is we're constructing a quadrant roadway. So we're taking all the left turn movements away from the main line. And by doing that, we see an improvement in throughput on the parkway. Here's just another concept. So this is right adjacent to the George Mason campus here in Manassas, as well as the ECBA building and our innovation area. Our next project is a project by OmniRide. OmniRide is our transit partners in the county, and they're our main transit providers. They're working on the construction of their Western maintenance facility. This is a key project. Mainly right now, most of the buses are stored on a facility in the east end of the county. So you're getting a lot of deadhead between east and west end. So this project will really support kind of the increased operations along the 66 corridor. Project itself will be completed later this year. Next project is our Route 28 Phase 3 project, is what we call it. It's the widening of 28 from 4 to 6 lanes between Lynn Hall Road and Pennsylvania Avenue. It's a design build project fully funded by NVTA at $40 million. And this is under construction and will be completed in spring 2022. Next project we have is the University Boulevard Extension Project. This is a revenue sharing project funded by 50% with state and 50% local funds. Currently under design, this is an extension project. It's about a $12.6 million project, and it will be completed in late 2022. Another very exciting project we have in the county is the Boulevard Rota 234 Interchange. This is a project where we're looking to realign part of Boulevard Road and construct a divergent diamond interchange. This is right adjacent to where the Parkway meets 66. It's fully funded by concessionaire funds. We're currently awarded the design builder, and project will be completed in late 2022. Here's another concept. It's an interesting project. I mentioned realigning one of the main roadways, Boulevard Road, and that actually helps us with our maintenance of traffic and scheduling purposes. Another related project is the widening of Boulevard Road. This is 2 to 4 lanes from Doan Drive to Route 234 Business. Ties in directly to the interchange, but we are treating it as a separate project, design bid build project. It's also fully funded by concessionaire funds. And the interesting thing about this project is it ties in directly to a commuter lot that VDOT is constructing as part of the 66 outside the Beltway project. And that commuter lot will have direct access to the express lanes once completed. So our goal with the interchange, according to the widening as well, is to really improve accessibility to the commuter lot. Next project is the VRE's Broad Run Station and Yard Improvements Project. This is a project by VRE to expand the station, focus on expanding the train storage capacity. They're also constructing a new parking lot north of the tracks, along with a new pedestrian tunnel. This is a very exciting project, and this will be completed in 2024. Another innovative project we have that came from the STAR study is the Brunswill Road Interchange at the Parkway. This is a project that's also fully funded by MVTA at $55 million. We're currently going through the proposal review, but we anticipate to complete this project sometime in late 2023, early 2024. What we have is a concept from the STAR study. It's a very high level concept, but it shows you the different innovative solutions. We're looking at a continuous green T on a certain intersection and partially grade separating some of the movements. Moving forward with some of VDOT's improvements as part of the Transform 66 outside the Beltway, there are 2 main commuter lots that really positively impacts the county. I'd mentioned the parking lot at Boulevard Road, currently under construction, but once completed, this will have 1,300 spaces. Another commuter lot as part of the project is a parking ride lot at Route 29 and University Boulevard. It's currently partially open with 1,000 spaces, and when fully completed, you're going to see about 2,000 spaces at the end of 2022. And OmniRide does have services that started to originate from this location going to DC. I'll kind of talk about some of the services a little bit later. In terms of what our transit partners are doing at OmniRide, as you know, in late March, did see a reduced service to operating less than half of all their express services. And in late April, there was further reductions to only operating 4 key commuter routes to serve DC or the Pentagon. But in June 22nd, they did see an increase in services for all 5 levels of service. And some of the things they're doing, they provide operators and other frontline workers with masks, sanitizers. They are limiting the number of passengers on their buses, and they're continuing monitoring next steps in terms of what we're dealing with COVID. Other services, so OmniRide is part of the Commuter Choice Program. This is funded and administered by MVTC. They've expanded their services with additional trips from Gainesville to the Pentagon, LaFont Plaza, and Navy Yard. It's also going to support additional service from Gainesville to DC, as well as from Haymarket to Rosslyn. I do want to briefly go over some of the changes to the local service by OmniRide. They did restructure their Western local service. They have a new service plan that really focuses on hub at the courthouse in Manassas. So this was established late last year, and they're going to continue to monitor, see how they can kind of benefit some of the transit riders in this location. With that, I will hand it over to Alfonso Watson with WMATA.
Good morning, everyone. And I want to thank Kelly and also Sarah for inviting me to be a part of this meeting. I don't have a PowerPoint. I'm actually not the person who would normally do something like this, so I volunteered to fill in for the person. So I'm going to just give you a brief overview of some things that are taking place at Metro that might be of importance to you. One is the COVID-19. Back in March, Metro modified its bus and rail operation. Metro Rail changed from 5 a.m. weekdays, Monday through Friday, to 11:30 to 9 p.m. 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. is Metro Rail service. Also, Metro Bus service is from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Fridays, and then also a modified service on Saturdays and Sundays from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Also on Metro Rail and Metro Bus, it's required that you must have a face covering or face mask. It's not an option, whereas before it was up until May. Also too, we encourage everyone to wash their hands, keep social distance as much as possible in the system when riding Metro Rail. We're constantly cleaning the buses every day, stations, Metro Rail systems, the cars, as much as we can. We also have a modified Metro Access service. Also too, I want to bring your attention to a construction project that we have going for Silver Line. I heard that mentioned by a few people. Silver Line, actually COVID-19 actually turned out to be good in one respect in terms of it's given us more time, but it's able to close down the Silver Line station phase 1, the Wheelie Reston stations down to McLean stations were closed, as well as other stations. Because of those stations being closed and ridership is now low, we're actually able to do more construction. And beginning Sunday, this coming Sunday, August 16th, the Silver Line station that I just mentioned between Wheelie, Reston, and also McLean will open up so that we can provide service for Silver Line. This also gives us a chance to tie in Silver Line phase 2 to phase 1 during this construction. And as was mentioned, there's no set date for when Silver Line phase 2 will open up, but because of the construction that's taking place and those train stations being closed, it's given us more time to do the construction, hopefully open it up as it was originally planned, maybe around summer of next year, but it could open up a lot sooner. And with that being said, that's all that I have for now, and I will turn it back over to, I believe it's Jeff.
Thank you, Al. I want to thank all the panelists. It was an outstanding presentation, just a lot of information to absorb. We have one question that has not yet been answered, and this is for you, Paolo. What is the status of a north-south connection to provide access to Dulles Airport, Loudon, and Fairfax County for Prince William County citizens? Can you take a shot at that one?
Yeah, it's actually typing it, but Jeff, so right now we don't have anything in our comprehensive plan with regards to this direct connection, but as part of our current comp plan, we're evaluating the process, and we're going to determine to see what other alternatives are feasible at this location as part of our comp plan update. Okay,
great. We had 2 other questions that have already been answered. There will be secure bike storage both at the Herndon and the Innovation Center Fairfax County garages. And I believe we will post this entire presentation, which has been recorded, on the data website. I'm going to take the privilege of just asking one question that I wrestle with and ponder. But first of all, let me commend all of these transportation agencies for the resilience that they've displayed during this extraordinary set of circumstances to continue to provide services, to continue to advance your various capital projects, and just generally have your workforce adapt. It's been truly remarkable, and you all deserve congratulations for that. One thing I wonder about is how you possibly plan for the future, both with respect to capital improvements and operations, when there are so many unknowns about what work is going to be like, life is going to be like post-pandemic. an illustration, the surveys that Helen referred to, that up to 20% of employers say they will continue to have telework as a permanent feature of their employment procedures. If that translates to a 20% reduction in vehicle trips, it has huge implications for capacity planning. So anybody want to take a stab at that? How you possibly plan for in such an unknown and uncertain environment as we're facing today? Or maybe nobody knows.
I guess I would just say that we are a very resilient region, and we are always growing. So I think, you know, to think that the world is going to be more shut down forever is kind of, it's a kind of a silly thought in the region that we're in. We were always planning to do more highways, more transit, more options for our folks, knowing that the congestion would continue to grow, and the congested hours will continue to grow. And so I think that's going to continue no matter whether you have the pandemic here for a year or so. We had all wished more people would telework because there is not enough tools in the toolbox to solve all of our problems, even with buses and metro and expansion of highways. So if another large group of people telework, then great. I mean, that was really what we were hoping for. That's what we were encouraging people to do, because we can't build enough roads. We can't necessarily build enough metro lines and buses and those sorts of things to handle the future growth that we anticipate. So I think over the next year, we obviously are going to be in a little bit of different times, but when you look further out, if this sticks with folks and they do telework, I think it just really helps us as an industry have folks not sitting for 3 or 4 hours in a commute line somewhere on a highway, or struggle because there's not enough seats on a bus or on a metro train. And you know, that allows them more time to get home and to go to the venues out there and build the economy by doing their shopping, going to the movies, because they have time if they're teleworking. So I don't look at it as if somehow that additional teleworking is a bad thing for us, because we've been really trying to get people to consider that as we go down the road. I do think it's going to be a tough year this year and probably next year, but long term, if we can get people to telework, that's really what we've been all about. Work from home if you can. That's a really positive thing that could come out of this.
Yeah, I just want to second that too. I mean, we've been putting a lot of resources into promoting telework for years. And so this is actually a very good thing for the region. You know, I think we'll always continue to monitor trends. I think that we may see, in some cases, I know when we talk about intercity rail, there are even some prognosticators out there saying that rail may end up picking up more market share from the airlines at least for short haul trips. And so these investments that we're making, though, they're generational types of investments. They're 100-year investments in many cases. And so I don't think we can just stop planning and assume that travel demand is going to change. And so there's no need to continue to expand transit or build roads or make other multimodal investments as well. I think we will continue to see, especially in Northern Virginia and DC, which has such a strong underlying economy, that we're going to continue to see the need for travel, the need for commuting. It may just look a little bit different.
Jeff, if I could add.
Oh, beg your pardon, go ahead.
If I could just add to that, in Metro, we realize the challenge that we have in trying to get our customers to come back and ride the system. Right now, Metro bus is free. We have rear boarding for protection of our customers and also for our employees. One of the things that we're doing, primarily my job at Metro, is smart benefits. I work with employers who work with employees where they commute to and from work. Right now, ridership is down at Metro anywhere between 85 and 90%, which is lost revenue for us. So one of the things that we're doing is we realize realistically that no one's coming back to Metro right now. Metro may not be fully operational. Who knows? It may be a year or so. So we're reaching out in terms of surveys. We're surveying our customers to see what would you like to see Metro look like in terms of assuring them that the system is safe, they can social distance, adding more cars or adding more buses. Also, I've been reaching out with Judy Galen in Loudoun County just to not secure business, but also make customers aware of the opportunities, planting the seed. So once the system does come back, once COVID has hopefully subsided and safe around the system, that they'll remember that and come back and contact us to possibly ride the system.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
If I could, I wanted to add that we are actually in the process of rebidding our contracts for transit service. And at this point, we're going to ask the bidders to come in with a 75% of pre-COVID numbers, just so that we're not overestimating ridership for a period of time. And then as ridership goes up, we will make adjustments as necessary. There's a lot of critical things that need to happen out there in terms of finding a vaccine, which could be several years away. I hope it's not that long, but we have to be realistic about where we are right now, but know that I think there's opportunity in the future. We just don't know what that future looks like yet.
Great. Those are some great insights. We all appreciate that. We had a question about autonomous vehicles. That could take a day-long seminar to discuss that. Anybody have any quick thoughts on that? That's just another unknown. That could be 15 years off. It could be next year. You don't know. You don't know what the popularity of them are going to be. But we did have one final question on that.
Well, Tom had to lead the discussion, but I know that Fairfax is running a pilot right now with autonomous vehicles. In Loudon, we have looked at them, but we have been so overwhelmed with the work with regard to COVID and addressing those issues, we've sort of put that on a back burner, but it is something of interest to us to look at in the future.
Same thing for Prince William County. It's something we're starting to look at. We did submit a grant to look at autonomous vehicles within Marine Corps Base Quantico, to pilot it, but it's something we're starting to look at, and we're going to keep an eye on Fairfax County's program to see how that works out.
Great. I'm going to take personal privilege and ask one final question, then we're going to adjourn because we have gone on quite a while. But I have to ask this, and it's directed to Christina and Al. And if you want to defer, I understand completely. But has there been any progress made in resolving the contractual issues and disputes with Phase 2 Silver Line? Are we working through these issues in a constructive manner?
I'll defer. That's above my pay grade, so I'll defer to Christina. Maybe she has a better answer.
I was going to defer to Al. No, I would just say that we are getting close to substantial completion of the Silver Line, and we are working extremely closely with our contractor, with WMATA, with all of our partners on the project to get substantial completion done, get it handed over to WMATA, so that they can do their work, so that they can start revenue service. But everybody is continuing to work very closely together, even during this weird COVID time period, to get it done and get it open.
Well, thank you. Having worked on Dulles Rail since I was a teenager, I'm really looking forward to taking that great ride from downtown all the way out to Ashburn. So I hope it happens in my lifetime.
You and me both, Jeff.
All right, okay. Hey, thank you, everybody. Thank you, all our panelists. Thank you for all of our attendees. We believe this has been very, very informative. And I'll let everyone get on to the rest of their workday. Thank you. And goodbye. The webinar is adjourned.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.